Welcome to episode 39 of the Reading Finnegans Wake in 200 Sessions podcast, where we analyze Finnegans Wake by James Joyce 3 pages at a time. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment to support us. Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into H.C. Earwicker, really trying to get at his core identity across these pages, 130 to 133. And it's not straightforward, is it? It's not like a simple biography.
Not at all. What Joyce gives us here is HCE as this massive nexus point, you could say.
Right.
Where you have historical figures, tiny bits of Dublin gossip, religious myths, even like cosmic laws, all kind of converging on this one character.
So our mission then is to trace how Joyce does this.
Yeah.
How he uses this incredible stacking of sources. I mean, everything from linguistic theory to insurance policies, apparently.
Right, exactly. To build this protagonist who's meant to be everyman, but across all of space and time, it's hugely ambitious.
And this specific section, 130 to 133, feels particularly key.
Oh, absolutely crucial, because it synthesizes the extremes of HCE. You get his very public life, the sort of grand figure, right alongside his, well, frankly, his sleazy private vices.
Ah, the contradictions again.
Always. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how the text uses these incredibly specific geographical points. You know, Dublin streets, bridges, real places you can find on a map.
Yeah.
But then in the next breath, it zooms out to, say, the Saturn system, or digs down into the roots of language itself, drawing on theories like Sir Richard Paget's.
Paget's gestural theory.
That's the one. Suggesting HCE's identity is somehow fundamental to human communication. We really need to take our time here because, honestly, almost every single sentence is a dense, multi-layered pun or allusion.
Okay, let's dive in. Part 1, the Seedy Saint and the Dublin Enigma, page 130, starting around line 6.
We're immediately grounded in Dublin, aren't we? A slightly decaying urban reality. HCE's public persona. That's right. It sets a scene around a statue. Very Dublin. Lines 6 and 7. The beggars cloak them, reclined about his paddy stool. The whores wink in him as they walk their side.
Okay, so HCE is a public monument. Probably Daniel O'Connell. His statue has that huge base.
That's the likely model, yeah.
Yeah.
And that base is the paddy stool, which is just brilliant.
Pedestal.
Pedestal, yes, but also paddenstoel, the Dutch word for toadstool, a mushroom.
Oh.
And of course, paddy, the colloquial, sometimes derogatory term for an Irishman.
So he's monumentally Irish, standing tall, but also associated with fungus, with decay, growing at the base of something grand.
Precisely. And look who's around him. The poor, the marginalized, the whores winking him.
Winking. That's not standard English winking, is it?
No, it leans on the German winken, which means to beckon or wave.
So is he beckoning them, or are they beckoning him?
Exactly. The relationship between the pillar of the community and the city's lowlife is intimate, kind of seedy, even though he's just stone. It's ambiguous.
And just as we establish this public statue, Joyce immediately dissolves him. Line 7 onwards, this completely confusing obituary cycle starts.
Oh, it's magnificent, isn't it? A death notice that layers Christian holidays and historical identity all at once.
Read it out, it's wild.
On Christmas at Advent Lodge, New Zealand, after a Lenti illness, the Reverend Mr. Easterling of Pentecostitis.
So you've got Christmas, Advent, New Year, the Lenti illness.
The whole church calendar, pretty much. And the deceased, Mr. Easterling.
Which was the term for?
A Viking invader, the Norse settlers in Ireland. So HCE is immediately linked to Dublin's foundational violence and history.
And he dies of Pentecostitis.
Pentecost, the feast day, combined with ileitis, inflammation, like peritonitis or something. It's an impossible spiritual-sounding disease for this historical conqueror figure.
Death is never simple in the wake. It's always a transformation, isn't it? And the funeral details, line 10, they're just as chaotic. No followers by bequest, fanfare, all private.
It scrambles the standard phrase, no flowers by request. Here it's no followers, so no mourners, but also implies no flowers maybe by bequest.
And the contradiction, a private funeral, but with fanfare. A loud public announcement.
Makes no sense, does it? It suggests maybe his passing, his influence, just can't be contained or kept private no matter what the family wants.
Right. This theme of, I guess, delayed arrival and contradiction just keeps going. Lines 10 to 12, we get that classic joke layered with science, politics.
Yeah, the joke, gone where glory waits him, but not here yet. It's referenced in Ulysses, too, about Spurgeon, I think. But the twist here is who is tracking his soul's progress, or lack thereof.
Bulletist. That sounds like the killer.
Yeah.
Simple physical death, the bullet.
Seems like it. The agent of brute force, but countered by Maxwell Clerk.
James Clerk Maxwell, the physicist behind electromagnetic theory, radio, wireless communication.
That's the one. So you have this juxtaposition, death by simple violence versus, well, the complex ethereal mathematics that underpins modern communication.
Why put those two together? What's the point?
It suggests HCE's fate isn't simple. It's not decided by one law. It's contested, between the lowest kind of violence and the highest kind of abstract physics. His death is as complex as the universe he seems to inhabit.
Wow. Okay. And this culminates in that brilliant line summarizing his whole life, his whole fraudulent existence, maybe. Commingst under articles, but finished a Borgies.
It captures everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It blends opposites. Commingst sounds like committed, but also commingled, mixed up.
He started under articles like an apprentice, bound by contract.
Right. Lowly beginnings. But he finished a Borgias. He finished as a burgess, a respectable, propertied citizen.
But finished suggests the phoenix, the cycle of rebirth.
Yes, but also sounds like finished.
Hmm.
And Borgies, you can't miss the echo of the Borgias, can you?
The corrupt popes. So his respectability is inherently corrupt.
It seems so. He's the cyclical figure rising from the ashes, yes, but always carrying that taint of corruption. The resilient but flawed citizen.
Okay, now, a complete shift. Line 13. We move from Dublin gossip and history into the very building blocks of language, referencing Sir Richard Paget's linguistic roots. This grounds HCE differently, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Paget's theory, which Joyce knew, suggested that early human language came from pantomimic gestures, with elemental roots for basic concepts. Joyce uses this to define HCE's fundamental nature.
The line is A1 and the highest, but rho re his root. That's a direct contradiction right there.
It is. A1 means top quality, the best. And Paget apparently assigned the root AL to mean up or even God. So HCE is the highest, almost divine. Rho, re his root. Rho is German for crude, raw. Re means concerning or about. So concerning his root, he's raw, basic, crude. He's simultaneously the highest aspiration and the base earth.
And his childhood seems to reflect that crude grounding. It immediately goes to literary figures and vice. Line 14. Filled fanned of hackleberries to fall foul of Hockenbechers, wherein he engaged the use of raisin.
So he starts as this adventurous child figure, maybe like Huckleberry Finn, hackleberries, full of beans, filled fan.
But that innocence doesn't last long.
Not at all. To fall foul of Hockenbechers. Fall foul of, okay, but foul is Scottish for drunk. And Hockenbecher suggests hock wine, maybe, and the German drinking toast, Hockbecher, raise your cups.
So he gets into drinking early. And he gauged the use of raisin.
He gained the age of reason, yes, but raisin is French for grape. So the implication is that his reason came through drinking through the grape, not through sober reflection.
This crude nature is then kind of codified through his actions as a ruler, using those Paget roots you mentioned. Line 16, 18, ADE, DA give, RUP break, tan stretch, SA so, SEU squeeze out. What does listing them like this achieve?
It frames his whole social role in these really fundamental, almost primal gestures. Look at how he's described. Adds aliments, Pedestals, wraps rustics, tams turmoil.
Okay, so adds aliments, he eats food. That still is? He gives handouts.
Right. Wraps rustics, he breaks or disciplines the country folk. Tams turmoil, he stretches out or tames civil unrest, maybe?
So he's like a primal despotic king, ruling through basic actions.
Yeah.
Eating, giving, breaking, controlling.
Exactly. It links his public function directly to the deepest mechanics of human gesture, according to Paget's theory, anyway.
But as always with HCE, his private life immediately undercuts this authority.
Instantly. Right after establishing him as this provider and controller, we get sass seed enough for assemination, but Sue's skivvies on the sly.
Sass seed, sow seed. The patriarch providing for the future.
Yes, enough for a whole nation, maybe.
Yeah.
But privately, secretly, on the sly, he sues skivvies, pursues female servants, gets into trouble.
So those 6 elemental roots perfectly capture the contradiction. Public benevolence, private lust.
It's incredibly concise, and then his education, lines 18-20, seems to try and bridge this physical grounding with intellectual life he learned from hand to mouth.
Which usually means living poorly, right? Just getting by.
It does mean that. But Joyce is almost certainly also playing on the gestural theory of language. Again, learning physically through hand gestures, maybe like the work of Marcel Jeuss explored.
Okay. And he moves from that to speaking Irish with his eyes shut.
Irish Gaelic, learned by ear, possibly referencing the famous preacher, Father Burke, who was known for his extemporaneous speaking. So there's a kind of natural auditory learning.
And then comes formal education, Latin,
Mm.
and it doesn't go well.
No, he manages the basics.
Yeah.
He hacked his way through Hic-Haec-Hoc, the absolute beginner stuff.
But then.
He hanged his help from their hereafters.
So he either hanged himself metaphorically, gave up, or maybe he hanged his tutor, his help, because he couldn't get past the basics, couldn't handle the adverbs, hereafters, and more complex grammar.
It suggests a fundamental intellectual limit. Failure is built right into his attempt at higher learning.
And that failure immediately throws us back into physical Dublin. The text shifts abruptly, doesn't it? Lines 21-36, Dublin geography and his global identity. Starts with bridges.
Yeah, a circuit of Dublin bridges. Rialto, Annesley, Bin, Balls, Newcomen. We're back on the Liffey, mapping the city through its crossings.
But the description isn't exactly a tourist postcard. It's a scene of decay again.
Very much so. Line 22. The dearth of the dearth on the blush of the brick of the viled ville of Barnholm has dust turned to brown.
Let's unpack that. Dearth of the dearth. Lack of dirt.
Yeah.
Or death and dirt combined.
Probably both. On the blush of the brick, the red brick city, maybe at sunset. But that blush, that life, is overlaid with dust and death, turning brown, decaying.
And Barnholm.
It connects to Bornholm, a Danish island known historically as a pirate haven. So Dublin is this viled ville, a vile town built on piracy and decay.
And this brown decay is then contrasted really vividly with the idea of his character being dyed to tartan, lines 24-26.
It's a remarkable image. He is dyed to tartan him using 7 specific native Scottish dyes, all sourced from plants: rue, dulse, bracken, teasel, and so on.
7 dyes, like the 7 colors of the rainbow, symbolizing universality.
Exactly, and connecting him specifically to the intricate clan-based history of Scotland and its tartans. It's this explosion of specific ancient color laid over the dull brown Dublin dirt.
Why tartan, do you think? Is it that HCE, as everyman, is woven from all these conflicting specific historical threads, like the threads of a tartan?
That seems very likely. The tartan represents identity, community, history, and those colors are specific, native, ancient. It makes him both a man of the earth, the dyes come from plants, and a man of high, complex color.
And the line ends with a pun. Long gone, but not forgotten.
Long gone, but not forgotten, obviously. But Gunn references Clan Gunn, and probably Michael Gunn, who was a prominent Dublin theater manager, history and local Dublin life woven together again.
He grows physically huge, grew girther, and girther. That combines girth with
the German größer, meaning bigger. His physical expansion is tied to a different language.
And his identity spreads globally. Which brings us to that famous Dublin-Lublin puzzle, lines 27-31.
Right. His global reach is noted. 24 towns named Dublin in the USA, plus a namesake with an initial difference in the once Kingdom of Poland, which has to be Lublin.
So HCE isn't just a Dubliner, he's a global phenomenon. But the text brings it right back to spelling out D-U-B-L-I-N.
Yeah, the word puzzle. His first's a young rose, and his second's French-Egyptian, and his whole means a slump at Christie's.
Okay, walk us through it. Young rose is a B-U-D.
B-U-D, which gives you D-U-B phonetically, or close enough for Joyce.
And the French-Egyptian.
N-I-L, French for nothing, but also the River Nile. Reverse N-I-L, you get N-A-M.
D-U-B-L-N-A-N.
Wow. It's a fantastic literary puzzle, isn't it? Deriving the city's name from an inverted flower bud and a reversed river.
But the punchline is pretty bleak. His whole means a slump at Christie's.
After all that effort to define the city, the man, the name, the result is nothing. A failure at auction, a collapse in value. The grand portrait is maybe worthless in the end?
Then, almost immediately, we get this mythological creation scene. Lines 31-33. HCE's feminine counterpart emerges. Forth of his pierced part came the woman of his dreams, blood thicker than water.
He's suddenly cast as this primal creator figure. It layers multiple myths, doesn't it? Eve coming from Adam's rib, and the blood and water flowing from Christ's pierced side on the cross. Christ is the second Adam. HCE is the origin point, the source of life, specifically female life here.
And that creation is immediately defined by kinship, blood thicker than water. He's the foundation of the family, created through this almost divine surgical act.
Yes. And wrapping up this section, we get that slightly uncomfortable Chinese pidgin English reference, lines 34-36. It seems to mock, yet also identify an imperial figure.
Alan's Fleapold, perhaps, but Huang Chang every time. Aaron's Freeport, maybe. But what's Huang Chang?
It refers either to the imperial city in Beijing, Hongchang, or maybe to Huangshang, the title for the emperor.
So, despite Ireland's potential freedom, Fleapold, The figure of the emperor, the ultimate authority, endures every time.
That seems to be the idea. It uses that staged Chinese accent to connect the local Dublin authority figure, HCE, to the oldest, most enduring imperial traditions. It's jarring, but it makes that link.
And his final state here is one of decline, moving from the energetic, high big pipey boys, guys with the breath for bagpipes,
to smoking fags his time of life. Cigarettes, suggesting declining health, modern habits, maybe a kind of ennui setting in.
Okay, that takes us to the end of 130. Moving on to page 131, part 2. Vice, Virtue, and the Viconian Cycle. HCE immediately takes his place within these huge theological and historical structures.
Right away, he's positioned between key sites from Irish myth and history. Mount of Mish, Mel of Moy.
Mount of Mish is Mel Slamish, where St. Patrick tended pigs, symbolizing hardship, the start of Irish Christianity.
Exactly. And Mel of Moy is Ma Meal, the traditional Irish paradise, the afterlife, the land of pleasure. So HCE is perpetually stuck between that hard labor and the promised reward, between asceticism and paradise.
And this binary thinking leads straight into a kind of moral accounting, doesn't it? Line 131.02, 2 cardinal ventures and 3 capital sinks.
It's a moral ledger, cardinal virtues versus capital sins. But Joyce layers it politically, too. It likely references the first 2 Irish cardinals, Paul Cullen and Edward McCabe.
Ah, so HCE isn't just a moral case study. He embodies the whole religious and political structure that governs Irish morality.
Precisely. And that's reinforced by the list of Dublin Lord Mayors that follows, BVH, BLG, etc. He's rooted in specific, local, rotating political power.
And economically, line 131.04, he's defined as the source of all meals. Is breakfates, lunger, diner, and super.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner, supper. He's the provider for the community. But look at the twists Joyce puts in.
Lunger? That sounds like disease, tuberculosis.
Yeah, disease associated with poverty. Diner is German for servant, though it sounds like dinner. And super.
That refers to the famine, right?
Yeah.
The derogatory term for Catholics who converted to Protestantism just to get soup.
Exactly. So HCE's provision, his feeding of the community, is laced with disease, servitude, and this bitter history of spiritual coercion during the famine.
That sets up the next line perfectly, the emigration theme. As the streets were paved with coal, he felt his Copperary.
It's the classic immigrant dream flipped on its head. Not streets paved with gold, but with cold, prompting people to leave Tipperary. Topperary.
And Topperary could also be his top hat.
Yes. His symbol of status, the Dubliner's hat, is perhaps flimsy felt, full of holes, revealing the cold poverty underneath the surface respectability.
He then immediately scales up his historical importance.
Yeah.
Line 131.07, he takes on titles from multiple empires just before his fall.
He becomes global royalty, doesn't he? Osman Effendi, Serge Padishah. Osman were the Viking settlers. Effendi is an Ottoman title. Padishah is Persian for ruler.
So he's Viking, Ottoman, Persian, a fabric of empires.
Woven together like serge and paduasoy fabrics, maybe, yet he's also roi de Finnegans.
The French for king of the lazy ones, the useless Merovingian kings.
Exactly. The scale is huge, but the effectiveness, the actual power, might be nil. All show.
And his crown, the tiara of scones, becomes the focus of his downfall. This links him to Parnell, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Tiara of scones? Papal tiara, maybe, but also Tara, the ancient seat of Irish kings, and scones, obviously. This crown, this position, is held unfillable. He seems untouchable. Until one Liam Fale filled him in Westminster. This is pure Parnell. The Liam Fale is the stone of scone, the stone of destiny, central to Irish and Scottish kingship.
And Liam Fale. William Gladstone.
Has to be. Liam for William. Fale echoing the Leah Fale, but also meaning failure. Gladstone, the British Prime Minister, was key in Parnell's political downfall in Westminster after the O'Shea divorce scandal. HCE's fall is mapped directly onto the betrayal and collapse of Ireland's uncrowned king.
And the fall itself is described almost like a religious conversion gone wrong. Line 131.10, he was struck out of his Siddim when he rode solely to Damascus and to our appalling predicament brought his plagues from Budapest. It echoes Saul on the road to Damascus, struck blind, knocked off his horse.
Siddim seat system.
He rode like Saul, solely to Damascus, unmask us, or maybe Damascus again.
It seems his attempt to reveal the truth, perhaps, or convert, only reveals his own flaws, Damascus, and brings disaster, plagues.
And the plagues come from Budapest.
A classic Joyce pun, Budapest, the city. But also Buddha, the figure of enlightenment mixed with pestilence. Even the source of wisdom gets twisted into calamity in HCE's story.
Now this is crucial. Lines 131.1317. Joyce maps Vico's cycle directly onto HCE's life. Divine, heroic, human ages, and the ricorso, the return. We need to really see how this works.
Yeah, the Viconian cycle is the absolute scaffolding of the wake, history repeating in these 4 stages. So the first age, the divine age of gods and thunder, is HCE as Prometheus, set the living afire.
Like Prometheus bringing fire, but also the Dublin saying setting the Liffey on fire.
Exactly. Then the heroic age, the age of law and marriage, ACE, spear the rod and spoil the lightning, which combines the invention of the lightning rod, mastering nature, mastering the divine thunder, with the proverb, spare the rod and spoil the child. Law and discipline.
Right. And this leads into the human age, characterized by domesticity, married with cakes and repunced with pleasure. Domestic life, maybe a bit vulgar, repunced.
And then comes the age of decay, burial, death. Till he was buried, how happy was he? Up macabre.
Death is almost a relief. The reference is to Wilkins' Macabre from Dickens' David Copperfield, always waiting for something to turn up, who eventually emigrates to Australia, maybe suggesting HCE's death is just a move elsewhere, a hope for something better.
It'll lead straight into the Osiris myth, doesn't it? Guaranteeing resurrection.
Yes, the ultimate image of the cycle. God at the top of the staircase, carrion on the mat of straw. HCE is Osiris a god, yes, but currently dead, decomposing, carrion, waiting to be reassembled and resurrected. The entire engine of Vico's history is encapsulated right there in HC's biography.
But immediately after Vico, Joyce brings in a different myth, the Muhammad spider legend. Lines 131.1821. HCE as the prophet hidden in the cave. How does that fit with the Viconian return?
It reinforces the idea that the hero, even when defeated or hiding, is protected by something fate, providence, maybe just luck. The legend is that when Muhammad hid from his pursuers, a spider spun a web across the cave mouth and a bird nested there.
Convincing the pursuers that nobody could possibly be inside.
Right. So HCE is protected by the falsehood of a spindler web chokes the cave mouth of his unsightliness. Spindler is related to spider, Swedish spindle. The web hides him, but maybe also hides his unsightliness, his flaws, his ugliness, his invisibility, German Unsichtbarkeit.
And the protection extends further, referencing Ali sleeping in Muhammad's cloak, the bloodied war sheet, the green mantle.
Yes, Ali risked his life to decoy the assassins. HCE is covered by this legendary act of sacrifice and loyalty, so he's hidden, protected, ready for his return, and defined by duality. Vic-legal, our sworn foi.
Viking and viceregal invader and ruler, sworn foi, sworn foe, but also sworn faith.
Exactly. The contradiction is his essence. He embodies both sides.
The next sequence, lines 22-29, feels very different. Very Celtic, Gaelic. Steeped in grief and renewal, drawing on Macpherson's Ossian poems.
Heavily. It grounds the universal myth back into a specific ancient Celtic landscape and mood. We see HCE's burial under the 4 stones by his streams. That evokes ancient Scottish grave markers, cairns, from Ossian.
And the funeral involves feasting. Lost saleable at the joy of shells, using shells as drinking cups.
An ancient practice, it connects the mourning to a kind of primal celebration.
And the transition from darkness to dawn here feels particularly powerful. It mirrors that cycle of grief and relief.
It does. They darkened for you, falterer, in the year of mourning, which directly references the historical year of sorrow when Muhammad's wife Khadijah and his uncle Abu Talib died, a time of deep collective grief.
But it ends with hope.
Yes. They will fit hill to the dim twinklers when the streamy Morven light calls up the sunbeam. The fiddle plays for the stars, dim twinklers, as the dawn light, Morven is a key location in Ossian, hits the streams and calls up the sun. Morning ends, resurrection begins, the cycle completes.
As we near the end of page 131, HCE becomes this repository of knowledge marked by classical learning. Lines 130-34.
Yeah, he's defined by Latin and Greek inscriptions almost. Hereditatis columna erecta, Latin for lofty column of inheritance. He holds the past. And Hagian chiton erephon, Greek for sacred tunic of a young he-goat, maybe referencing Dionysus, or perhaps Christ's seamless garment.
He embodies all this spiritual and historical wealth. But he's tired. He nods a nap for the nonce.
Just taking a quick nap. But he wakes up, crows cheerio when they get ecumenical.
Which is a pun, obviously. Ecumenical, promoting unity, but also economical. He perks up when money or unity is involved.
Seems like it. And then Joyce throws in that wonderful mathematics joke.
Right, the simultaneous equator of eliminated integers when 3 upon 1 is by inspection improper.
It sounds incredibly complex, doesn't it? Calculus, simultaneous equations. But the punchline is 3 upon 1 is by inspection improper. Well, of course it is. 31 is an improper fraction by definition. It's primary school maths dressed up in complex jargon.
Undermining the whole pretension of academic knowledge again. And he embodies Confucius too, line 133, the most conical hod piece of Confucianist heronym.
That conical shape connects back to Tim Finnegan, the hod-carrier from the ballad carrying his hod. But it also suggests the bump said to be on Confucius's forehead.
So HCE is the laborer and the philosopher. Confucianist heronym. Confucius, confusion, hero name.
All mixed up. And it continues with Futsi Kungaloo around Tai-Shanti land, mixing Confucius Konfutsi with Futsi, maybe Thailand, Siam, and shantytowns. Ancient Chinese wisdom meets modern global poverty.
This shift to the cosmos at the very end of the page is just extraordinary. After all this local Dublin stuff, history, language, why does Joyce suddenly make HCE the planet Saturn?
It's the ultimate statement, isn't it, about his scale, his slowness, the mystery of time he embodies. He's described as globeful as a gasometer of lithium and luridity.
Okay, globeful as a gasometer, spherical, massive, full of gas. But lithium and luridity.
This is where Joyce's scientific accuracy, even amidst mythology, is stunning. Saturn is a gas giant, and uniquely, it's less dense than water. In fact, the only known solid element less dense than water is lithium. Joyce knew this.
Wow. So HCE has this immense, weighty appearance, but he's fundamentally light, gaseous, and luridity.
Lurid means pale yellow, Saturn's color, but also suggests something shocking or sensational.
And his lifespan, his cycle, is determined by Saturn's orbit. Nearly 30 years.
Exactly. He travels thrice 10 annular years before he wallowed round Giant Circos. 30 years, thrice 10. Annular references Saturn's rings.
And his slow, massive journey around the cosmos is compared to traffic.
He wallowed round Regent Circus, which was Piccadilly Circus in London. The slow, heavy traffic circling a major city hub. HCE's cosmic cycle is mirrored in mundane city life.
It makes him seem like a law of nature. His rise and fall are as inevitable, as slow-moving as a planetary orbit. Maybe also a hint of Jesus leaving home at 30.
Could be layered in there, too. He's cosmic time, historical time, biographical time, all at once.
Take a deep breath. Page 132, Part 3. The King, the Judge, and the Colossus. This cosmic figure is immediately grounded again, this time in Arthurian legend. It opens with the cable stone at the coping of his cabin.
Right. Cablestone sounds like cobblestone, but Cabal was King Arthur's dog. Coping is the top layer of a wall. Cavern suggests cave or cabin, but maybe also Copenhagen. So Arthurian myth, basic building materials, and Danish connections all surround his home.
And his sheer scale needs an American perspective.
Yeah.
Line 132.02. Only an American could approximate the apipreciosity of his at-last allongement.
Yeah, only the American spirit of hyperbole of tall tales can even begin to approximate the putiosity, with a poupre approximately mixed in, of his atlas-like size and elongation through history. He's like a figure from American folklore now.
Then we get his specific Arthurian failure. Lines 132.0406. Defined by a noble but failed quest, sticklered rights and lefts at Battersdown, in his hunt for the boar truth.
He was a stickler for rights, fighting fiercely, rights and lefts, at the Battle of Baden Hill, Battersdown. And his quest was for the mythical boar Torchtureth from Welsh legend.
Which sounds like true worth or bare truth.
Exactly, hunting for truth itself. But he fails. His end came when he made his end with the Moderats that came at him in Camlin Street.
Killed by Mordred, Moderats also suggest moderates, at the Battle of Camlin. But Joyce transposes it to Camden Street, Dublin.
The grand legendary defeat happens on a mundane Dublin street corner. It brings the myth crashing down to local reality.
And he's compared to history's other great failures.
Yes, a Hannibal and exhaustive conflict and Otho to return. Hannibal, the great general, ultimately exhausted by war and defeated. Emperor Otho, who committed suicide rather than continue a civil war. HCE's life, despite its apparent grandeur, is defined by these figures of ultimate failure or self-destruction.
The cycle of the four elements reappears after his death. Lines 132.0708, re-emphasizing his universality. Burning body to eager air on melting mountain in wooing wave.
Fire, burning body, creates air which is chilled, agar means sour, sharp, suggesting cold air, by the melting earth mountain, which then turns to water, wooing wave. The elements transform through his death.
He's the raw material of creation again. We go into him sleepy children, we come out of him strucklers for life. His death is the engine for rebirth, for struggle.
Precisely. And his final heroic failure in the sequence is almost comic. Lines 132.0911. He undresses to save people drowning, but his clothes get stolen.
He divested to save from the Mrs. Drownings their rival queens. A grand, selfless gesture, maybe referencing a play called The Rival Queens.
Possibly. He dives in naked to save them, but the consequence. 3 figures, Grimshaw, Bragshaw, and Renshaw, just made off with his storing clothes.
The public hero is left naked, foolish, vulnerable, undone by petty theft.
It's bathos, isn't it? The heroic brought down to the absurdly mundane.
The text then moves to these mythic markers, linking parts of it into ancient relics. Lines 132.1214. His 3-faced stone head was found on a White Horse Hill.
That connects him to Celtic triple deities like Lugus, maybe the 3-faced stones found in Britain, also to ancient megaliths like Stonehenge, Stonehead, and the famous White Horse Hill chalk figure in England.
His footprints are cosmic. Print of his costalus feet is seen in the goat's grass circle.
His feet leave prints like constellations, costalus, and they appear in a goat's grass circle, a fairy ring, or maybe the foundations of an old castle or enclosure. He leaves mythic traces on the landscape.
This sets him up perfectly as this figure of salvation, doesn't it? Echoing Luke 14. Pull the blind, toll the deaf, and call dumb, lame, and halty. He's calling the disadvantaged to him.
Yes, he becomes the object of veneration, the source of healing or help. He is Miraculone Monstratuline.
Miracle worker and little monster, referencing Father Charles Mount Argus, the Passionist priest known for healing.
Very likely. That internal contradiction again. And it's reinforced by the hunter-haunter dynamic. Hounded become haunter, hunter become fox.
The pursued becomes the pursuer. Parnell's alias was Mr. Fox. The cycle of predator and prey reverses.
And we get the Vico cycle condensed again. Harrier, Marrier, Terrier, Tav, line 132.17.
Harried, divine age. Married, heroic human. Buried, terrier from French enterer. And then sleep death. Tev, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet, symbolizing end.
It's a good reading. And this leads straight into the political landscape again, defining him as this impossible synthesis of all power structures. Viking rulers, Olaf the Oxman, Thorkar the Terrible, sounds like Turgesius, the Viking tyrant, but also Turco the Terrible from pantomime.
Roman emperors, Vespasian, who taxed public urinals, and Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor.
And politically, he's everything at once. Lugamore, traitor Tory, socialist commonizer. Whig and Tory, traitor socialist, communist commoner. An impossible blend.
He even defines Dublin street violence using historical figures. Line 132.21. First, he shot down Raglan Road, and then he tore up Marlborough Place.
It merges contemporary street names and maybe skirmishes with the names of famous British generals. Lord Raglan, Crimean War, and the Duke of Marlborough.
And tore up also contains Ragnarok, the Norse end of the world.
Very possibly. Dublin is perpetually caught between mundane traffic and mythical apocalypse. And his final resting places, his feet trysts, are Cromlech Height and Cromwell Hill, ancient mountains from Ossian near the river Lubar. The ancient landscape witnesses his end.
We conclude this portrait with his sheer physical immensity. Line 132.25. Netted before nibbling, grossed after meals, weighs a town in himself.
Measured like cargo, net, and gross weight. But also maybe evoking W.G. Grace, the famously large cricketer who was also called the Grand Old Man, an epithet shared with Gladstone.
He literally weighs a town in himself, and Ireland is split on him.
Ireland itself, Benba, prayed for his conversion, his reform, but the English speakers, Burla, the English language personified, missed his grand old voice.
He's this monumental, complex mixed product, colossus among cabbages, the Melloran citron of fruits.
A giant amongst the ordinary, and a Melloran citron, a hybrid fruit combining apple, mela, orange arancia, and lemon, citron. Sweet-sour complex.
Now this next bit is just stunning. Lines 132.3032. We get a verbatim public memorial listing his perfect virtues, followed instantly by questions about his sordid death.
It's an incredible juxtaposition using a real source. The text lists 4 virtues: the sparkle of his genial fancy, the depth of his calm sagacity, the clearness of his spotless honor, the flow of his boundless benevolence.
And you're saying those exact words are somewhere in Dublin?
Yes, they are copied precisely from the inscription on the bust of Sir Philip Crampton, a Dublin surgeon, located near Marion Square. This is HCE's official, polished, public image, his memorial.
But the very next lines shatter it completely. The text asks, Query, was he invincible, and cur, was he burked?
Quer, the Anglo-Irish for why or strange. Why was he killed by the Invincibles, the group behind the Phoenix Park murders? And cur, why or how was he burked?
Burked meaning smothered, like Burke and Hare, the Body Snatchers, but also referencing maybe James Carey, the invincible informer, or Daniel Curley, one of those executed.
Exactly. The public image of spotless honor is immediately countered by these dark questions of political conspiracy, assassination, betrayal, being silenced or smothered. The perfect man was murdered, or worse, done in by his own secrets.
His end is described as this bitter moment of realization. Line 132.34. Took a sig at his own mether, but she tested a bit gorky.
He takes a swing, or maybe a deceitful swig, of his
Okay.
own mether, which could be methyl alcohol, poison, but also mother, maybe Mother Ireland, or Isis reassembling Osiris.
And it tested a bit gorky. Tasted bitter. Gorky is Russian for bitter.
Yeah.
And it evokes Maxim Gorky's novel, The Mother.
So HCE drinks the poisoned chalice of his own history, his own legacy, his own mother country perhaps, and finds it bitter, toxic.
Yet even in this bitterness, wisdom is still emerging. Salmon he was coming up in him all life long.
The salmon of knowledge, the source of Finn McCool's wisdom in Irish myth, caught near the salmon leap at Leixlip. Is it literally being regurgitated in death? Or is it the ultimate enlightenment achieved at the very end?
And his final farewell is just a jumble, a mix of German and American folklore containing his initials, HCE, Come Eilerdick, Huckleberry, and Sawyer the Warden.
Come Eilerdick German for come hurry up, then Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer, and Warden may be waiting, or a guard. He departs as this scrambled mess of international cultural fragments.
Okay, final stretch, page 133, part 4. Insurance, politics, and Waterloo. We're in the aftermath now. HCE is dead. Silent as the bee and honey, stark as the breath on hawk. Dead near Halfhead.
Yes, and there's a sobering political reminder straight away. Even if you try to embrace America, rope Emmerich, your real home ruler is Daniel O'Connell. His influence is inescapable in Dublin.
And the fate of HCE's body is contested, like some medieval judgment scene. Lines 133.0305.
It's split into two possibilities. Figure right, he is hoisted by the scurf of his shaggy neck, suggests hanging, execution.
And figure left, he is rationed in isobaric patties among the crew.
Cannibalism. Or maybe the Eucharist. Divided up into portions of equal atmospheric pressure, isobars, a bizarrely scientific division, HCE becomes sustenance political, spiritual, maybe literal, divided among his followers.
And the immediate questions show what people really care about. One asks, was he poisoned? One thinks, how much did he leave? Money and suspicion.
Always. His history as a self-made man is then summarized. Line 133.06, ex-gardener, Riesingeberger, fitted up with planturous existences.
Adam, the first gardener, but also Gladstone, the grand old gardener, and Riesenberg are the giant mountains in Central Europe. He comes from nowhere, rises from the dirt.
Rises to wealth, planturous existences, allowing him to marry Rosie O'Grady, Mite's little hose, sweet Rosie O'Grady, the song, but maybe with greedy eyes. Oog is Dutch for eye, and he can afford her nice stockings hose, or maybe it's a garden hose linking back to the gardener.
That dual employment thing at lines 133.0910 is fascinating too. He's tied to both crime and law enforcement.
Absolutely. He gets enjoyment he took in K-women, K-prostitutes, but gives employment he gave to G-men. G-men, detectives, police.
So he's enabling the crime he pays others to investigate, playing both sides.
Exactly. He's an ally to a host of rowdies, criminals, and simultaneously a sponsor to a squad of peelers, police Sir Robert Peel, the ultimate hypocrite, or maybe just the system itself embodied.
And the ultimate commentary on his material life has to be that insurance policy, lines 133.1113. Why does Joyce list every single peril covered? It's quite a list.
Because it's the perfect document of modern anxiety and the perfect symbol of futility, maybe. HCE is insured against lightning, explosion, fire, earthquake, flood, whirlwind, burglary, third-party rot, loss of cash, loss of credit, impact of vehicles.
It covers everything. The 4 classical elements are in there: fire, earth, water, air, lightning, whirlwind, alongside totally modern risks like loss of credit and impact of vehicles.
He's insured against mythological disaster and mundane modern collapse. He's covered against the entire universe, basically.
And yet, he's still dead.
Exactly. It shows the limits of material protection, doesn't it? The most comprehensive policy imaginable can't save HCE from the inevitability of his own history, his own nature, his own cycle.
His duality as hypocrite, or maybe just complexity, is explored again. Lines 133.1316, he can speak on any level, ranting as grave as oxtail soup.
And chatting as gay as a Porto flippant. A Porto flip is a cocktail or dessert. So serious as gravy, frivolous as a fancy drink.
And politically, he's impossible. unhesitant in his unionism, and yet a bigoted nationalist.
Total support for the UK Union, yet also a bigoted nationalist. This is a direct contradiction. And bigoted deliberately evokes Richard Pickett, the forger who tried to ruin Parnell. The name itself carries the taint of betrayal and contradiction.
That time reference, line 133.17, and 913 years of copyhold, feels significant too.
It echoes Adam's traditional age at death, 930 years, mixed with maybe the 39 Articles of the Church of England, and maybe even 1939, the year the Wake was published. He's ancient, existing under this perpetually renewed ownership or lease copyhold.
And this connects directly to Janus, the two-faced Roman god.
Yes, the god of beginnings, endings, transitions, doorways. Janus's temple doors in Rome were open during wartime, closed during peace. HCE is all days open for Ptolemy Polity's sake when he's not, sometimes closed for the love of Janus.
So always open for war, polemos, and politics, but only sometimes closed for peace, and invoking for the love of Jesus at the end.
War seems to be the default state. Peace is the exception.
Yet in his final complexity, lines 133.1921, he seems surprisingly tolerant, almost defying his own background.
It seems so. He sucks life's elixir from the pedipicles of the Jewess. The elixir of life, referencing the ancient alchemist Maria the Jewess. He draws wisdom from unexpected, perhaps historically persecuted sources.
And he defends Protestants. Rules in sulks if any popeling runs down the Huguenots.
He rolls around sulking. Raoul was the hero of Meyerbeer's opera Les Huguenots. If any Catholic, popeling, criticizes the Huguenots, he defends history's victims even as he embodies so many of its aggressors. It's deeply contradictory, but shows a capacity for empathy, maybe.
Okay, the final muster. Lines 133.2124. It's a rapid-fire list of military commanders, bringing us right back to that ultimate historical battle.
Waterloo. The battle that reshaped Europe. We get Buonaparte, Wellesley, Obermarschall Blücher and Supercharger, Bonaparte, Wellington, and Marshal Blücher.
Plus, Monsieur Ducrot, the famous equestrian showman who staged spectacles of the battle.
And right alongside them, Mr. Munson, Master, Gardner, Adam again, made of mud. The whole span of human history, from the first man to the great modern battle, is present at HCE's end.
And the final judgment on him is completely contradictory. Naturally, to one, he's just Paunch and Judic.
Punch and Judy show. Paunch and Judge, a figure of both farce and authority.
To another full of beans and brehons.
Yeah.
Lively, energetic, but also referencing the ancient Brehon law judges of Ireland.
He's simultaneously a joke and a serious legal scholar, lowbrow and highbrow, and his final states just dissolve him completely. Hallucination, Koshman, ectoplasm.
Nightmare Kashmar, maybe Coachman, and pure spiritual residue. Yeah, the man, the city, the cosmos, all reduced to a kind of mental projection, a ghostly trace.
So what have we learned across these incredibly dense 4 pages? I mean, this portrait really solidifies HCE, not as one single man, but as, well, the accumulated memory of Dublin itself, maybe? All its contradictions, its cycles.
Yeah, he shifts constantly, doesn't he? Between holiness, you mentioned Osiris, St. Patrick, Muhammad, and total depravity, like the Borgias, the lechery, the theft.
And he exists simultaneously in concrete historical fact. We had Lord Mayors, generals, the Crampton inscription, and then in the vastness of the cosmos as Saturn. He's the walking, talking, perpetually cycling contradiction that maybe is the human experience.
That blending, that constant juxtaposition of the highest ideals and the lowest behavior, that seems to be the core of it. You have the pristine public image literally carved in stone on the Crampton bust.
And then lines later, Grimshaw, Brackshaw, and Renshaw are stealing his clothes while he's trying to be a hero.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And this use of sources, I mean, from Greek grammar he couldn't master to that incredibly detailed insurance policy, feels like Joyce is asking, can we ever really be defined by one single truth? Or are we just the sum total of all the chaotic, contradictory stuff surrounding us? HCE is the list, in a way.
Which raises a really interesting question for us, I think, especially thinking about how he keeps dying or failing. We saw the Arthurian defeat at Camlin Street. The macabre-like failure waiting for something to turn up, that bitter, toxic swig of his own history at the end. If HCE is everybody, is our own personal wake, our own reckoning after death, simply the world trying to piece together our story, trying to reconcile our most magnificent virtues, the stuff people praise, with our most embarrassing, crude, or hidden secrets.
Because the structure of the wake, the Iconian cycle, seems to demand that those secrets, those flaws, always rise up eventually to poison the protagonist right before the cycle starts again.
Exactly. And that cycle always restarts. Think about that Saturn analogy, that huge, slow, 30-year orbit, the luminous rings, the whole cosmic scale. And Joyce compares it to traffic crawling around Regent Circus.
Our grand cosmic fate is mirrored in a traffic jam on a city street corner, just waiting for the lights to change, for the cycle to begin again. That realization maybe that the biggest things are embedded in the smallest, most mundane details, that's definitely something for you to mull over.